We started this podcast talking a lot about the difference between the daemon and the demon, and that's an important thing because here. Let's see if I can make this distinction and articulate it properly because it's a little complicated. So, the daemon needs to be viewed as in a way a neutral spirit. It can be both negative and it can be positive. In the case of Socrates, and other uses of the word that come up in ancient Greek times, it wasn't positive. It was this influence that you could choose to channel into something constructive. And it could guide you to a better version of yourself, a better existence. Now, I believe it is through the Christianization of this concept that it became demon. They are related because in Christianity there is less this of this idea that a deity can be both good and bad. You had it more separate. So you had God good, Satan bad. There was not this idea that a spirit could be both good and bad. And that is a lot of how Greek mythology is, where you have gods that do bad things but are still gods and then do good things. So the daemon allows for that range of good and bad, while the demon does not. A demon is what we understand it to be now in contemporary culture, entirely a negative force. But this is like half of the daemon. So the issue with the daemon is that it can be a negative force if it is ignored or avoided. So that's why you have the idea that Socrates would listen to his daemon. He I forget exactly the quote, but there's something of him saying that when it would speak, he would listen to it. And it's actually the daemon that got him to stay and drink the hemlock, because it was the daemon, this voice, that told him when he considered, can I just leave? Because he could have just left and been in exile instead of actually being executed. And it was this voice that told him, no, don't do that. And so he listened to it because he always listened to it. And that would be the example. I mean, granted, he died, so I don't know. Is that a great outcome? That's for you to decide. He was also a really old man, so, perhaps that is better because you don't know. Maybe he died there and he avoided a much worse death. But he would always listen to the daemon. And so that's living in, you can say this is the integration of that spirit, that element. Whereas in the movie Hereditary, you have two versions of ignoring the demon. Now, obviously this is a demon in the film, but it is real. I see a parallel where it's kind of it almost seems like it's this negative shadow side, and this kind of goes into that like idea of the Jungian theory, where the shadow is not evil. It's not considered evil, but it is the parts of yourself that can be very harmful if you ignore. And you're supposed to integrate these parts, and that's the idea of Jungian psychology, is the whole idea of integrating the entire personality. And when you don't integrate the personality, which is this, you get the same outcome as when you ignore the daemon. You become possessed. And so you can be possessed by the negative aspects of the personality that you're ignoring. And this is a super interesting concept that I wish I could explain even better, but it's extremely expansive and deep. But so you have Annie, who sleepwalks in the film. And when she sleepwalks is when she essentially is possessed and has done horrible things, like about to kill her whole family by dousing them all in lighter fluid and then like standing there with a match. And then she sleepwalks also into the the son's room, and I think did she have something with her
Well,
when she did that?
we were discussing this. Remember, we also
I
came
remember
up
if
with
she just appeared there.
we also came up with the crazy theory that maybe it's only when she was sleepwalking that she was actually in her right mind. Because if you actually thought one of the kings of hell, Lord Paimon, was going to possess your family, a reasonable person, well, this is pretty hardcore, but a reasonable person might want to stop that.
Yeah, stop a worse outcome. Well,
Right.
this is again like the Socrates a little bit. Well, the Daemon told him, don't run from death, actually, which seems counterintuitive, but we don't know if that actually would have saved him from something much worse.
Well, anyway, that was a minor sub theory we had while we were working over the movie. But yeah, she goes into his room a couple of different times, and basically, one scene is just very intense because she's just extremely cruel to him verbally, right? That's when
that's a dinner table scene, though, isn't it?
She I could have sworn she goes in there at one point and says, "I never wanted you.
Right.
I wanted it. I tried to have a miscarriage. All this kind of stuff." She's essentially just mentally and verbally abusing the kid.
I didn't want to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
Separately, there may have been a separate incident, or that may have been part of the same one. And just we talked about this in the other podcast. One of the scariest movies one of the scariest moments in the movie is when she briefly appears completely doused in lighter fluid. But that was a callback to apparently when she was in that help group therapy thing. She told them that she had a problem sleepwalking, and that she had gone into the room and was holding lighter fluid and a match. She didn't tell them that she had actually put lighter fluid on herself. So I think that was kind of a callback to that thing that had happened, that she had said had happened. Because remember, she tells the group, what do you call it? I don't know anything about therapy, obviously.
Group therapy. Yeah,
the
group therapy.
The group therapy group, she says to them, that, and I think she says that's what got me into a little bit of trouble, where I had to come to this the first time.
Yeah.
A lot of layers in this film.
Yeah. Now I'm remembering the part where the husband gets caught on fire, and I'm thinking, did she put lighter fluid on him?
Well, if in reality...
He went up in flames. I had attributed it to some type of demonic thing, but actually...
Well, that's what's great about a horror movie, is that you can think about it in a couple different ways, whether it had a supernatural explanation or not. Though it doesn't try to annoyingly tread that line. It doesn't do that, because in the end you just see her run around like a spider on the ceiling.
Clear.
So but
that's
it
the
does
worst.
It does that well. I know. Sorry to bring that back up.
I hate that.
I know.
Okay, so the interesting thing here is, now I when I did the research on this, I couldn't believe that this was actually a thing, because it's you watch this movie and you think sleepwalking, she's crazy when she sleepwalking and she wants to kill the kids or something, but there is actually something called sonambulistic possession, which sounds like what it is. It's a kind of possession where the person is asleep. They are unaware that they are being possessed. They have no memory of it. They essentially go away. And the self that comes forward is the possessor. The other self is gone. And this is very interesting also because there are versions of multiple personality disorder that are like this too, where the person does know that there is a multiple personality with them at that time, or that they switch and they have no memory of the other personality. That's why it can be so hard for people with that kind of multiple personality disorder to get treatment, because they have no memory, no knowledge of the other personalities. And then there's also lucid possession. So this is the type of possession when the person is aware of the possession occurring. This is what happens to Peter. So if you see him, there's, I think, a few scenes, at least 2 scenes in the classroom where he kind of has this, he's aware that something's wrong with him. And there is this scene where he kind of slams his head down on the desk and he immediately comes up like freaking out, screaming and terrified because he has memory of what just happened. He lost control of himself and felt that control being given to something outside of him, beyond him, or in him, but not him. That's lucid possession. That's a possession where the person is actually aware of what is going on. And it's very interesting because, I mean, again, who knows all these things about possession? I don't believe in possession personally, but what's important about this is to see the parallels for how it previously explained what we would now explain as multiple personality disorder.
Can I briefly ask a question?
Yeah.
I thought there was some idea that multiple personality disorder was extraordinarily rare because they started to try to use it in court cases a lot as a defense for certain things and say, oh, they had multiple personality disorder. And then I read somewhere that multiple personality disorder, which apparently has been renamed whatever you call it, dissociative,
yeah.
that it's actually an extremely rare thing and that there's some question as to, is it real? Or was it kind of... See, I don't know. I'd have to go back and try to figure out...
There's still research that's done on dissociative identity disorder as being a legitimate thing. And one of the experiences, I guess, of dissociative identity... I know there was a more sensationalist view of multiple personality disorder. And it is now called, I believe, exclusively dissociative identity disorder. But it is a real diagnosis that is in the diagnostic whatever manual. I'm pretty sure it is. Because I just read a study on it. So unless there was something that was recalled.
Is that called DSMV or DMSV or something?
Yeah, it's DSMV, bunch of numbers or something. I don't know. But the interesting thing about dissociative identity disorder is that there are certain experiences with that illness where the person does experience sleepwalking and particularly experiences possession and paranormal experiences. So that it is an interesting choice on the part of on Ari Aster's behalf because it very clearly is one of the only kinds of mental illness that a person can have, still be coherent at times, and experience possession legitimately. You looking it up?
I did, but I don't care.
Okay.
I think
we don't care.
I reject psychology. You know that I only look at history.
That would be, you could say it's psychiatry if you don't want to.
Sorry. Psychiatry? Is psychiatry and psychology different? Isn't psychiatry just they can give you drugs and psychologists are like, no, you can't have drugs. I can't do that.
Well, psychologists, it depends on the psychologist, but they would be also like, you want to talk about it? Whereas a psychiatrist is like, just take these drugs. They might also talk to you too, but...
Okay, so...
They're more the medical model.
I'll just take a random stance, I guess, against psychology. Should I do that?
I don't think you should do that.
Well,
it's not for this podcast.
Here's the thing. You said I don't believe in possession. And I... agree with you, I guess, but here's the thing.
You want to take a stance on that?
Not a hard stance. In a way, okay. No, I was thinking as you were talking about this. In a way, aren't we just putting just a different label on the same old demonic possession? I guess the difference is we would say today, or the psychiatric community and the wider culture would say there's something medically wrong with your mind and that it's not a demon that's in your brain. Come on, don't believe that. But we are clearly looking at some similarity, some thing that has lasted. I was just reading the King James Bible some 2,000 years ago, and you were like, this is the symptoms of psychosis, of mental illness. There's something that persists. And now it's... Okay, let me put it this way. It's only this is a fact. It's only in the last 50 to 100 years or something that we've decided that it's not demons.
Yeah.
For the other 5,000 years, we decided it was demons. Now,
Yeah.
that's probably right. We're probably correct in that, and I'm all for it. But we need to not. I just think it
Scoff.
shouldn't scoff. Don't scoff
Don't
at
scoff
it.
at demons.
Don't
scoff at demons.
You know what I'm trying to say is
That's
that
the name of the podcast episode for sure.
there are still people today. We were talking about this pre-show. I like to call it pre-show. That's the professional podcasting
Yeah,
term.
that is professional.
In the green room, we were talking about it. I said I believe that the Catholic Church still, under fairly limited circumstances, performs exorcisms. That it's still doctrinal. Now, I know you speak for the Catholic Church unofficially, and you can maybe confirm or deny that. But I believe, and I believe the Eastern Orthodox Christianity does this as well. In fact, all of the I think all religions have a form of this, of dispelling demons from people.
I think only Buddhism doesn't.
Well, I know that the Buddha, when he was rocking out under the Bodhi tree, I'm just doing my retelling. After I retell the Bible in my version, I'll also do the Buddha story.
Yeah.
He was meditating, and he was besieged by hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of demons.
Huh.
And those demons were representations of, what we would say, those demons were representations of mental processes.
Oh.
So there is a whole hierarchy of demons and spirits and all that, even in Buddhism.
Yeah, maybe it's. I know they have like Mara, which is the demon for Buddhism, that, or at least for the Buddha, that he was tempted by Mara.
So there are demons in Buddhism. There are demons in.
I just don't know if they have possession.
Oh, right.
But I think maybe it would be the idea that you can become possessed by a process. I'm gonna just go on a limb. You know what I mean?
And say I bet they do.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, because we use the word possession comes from, I can't remember exactly whatever. But there is a link with obsession. You become possessed by. You can become possessed by something. And we say that, we could even, I mean, I don't know how much people say that anymore, but there's the idea that you become possessed by a passion, or possessed by some new interest. And these would be, that's a good thing. But you can become possessed by infatuation for a lover or whatever. And that is also a form of coming back to the idea of the demonic, which is this more powerful kind of spirit. It's not in the same way that we look at spirits, but it is this force, and it can take over the person. And this is, again, like very similar to the idea of the Jungian out of balance personality, where you can become possessed by one side of the personality, whether it's too much emphasis on the persona. You become more possessed by this aspect of the persona, so you're more concerned with your appearance for the outside world, how you portray yourself, how people see you. Or you can become possessed by the shadow side of your personality, which is you are more beholden to the destructive impulses that your personality has. So the really interesting, this is the thing that I think, obviously it's good if you need to take your medicine, all that.
Give medical advice again.
Yeah, I'm the FDA, I'm the Catholic Church, all these things. But I think the Surgeon General, whatever.
If you need to take your medicine, take your medicine. Good.
It's my PSA.
That's a respectable viewpoint.
That's a respectable right there. But the thing that I think is so interesting to look at this movie with is not to just watch it as a classic supernatural horror, but to see through, in a way, the eyes of an ancient person, how you can very much see this possession as the way an ancient Greek would view mental illness. It is this possession by a larger, more powerful force. But the way that you would avoid that, now I'm not saying that you can cure schizophrenia with depth psychology and Jungian and whatever, but there's an interesting approach to the daemon, which I think is really missing in our culture, because we do, and that's great. It's great to emphasize medicine and therapy and all that, and how the environment, like, obviously, if you live in a decrepit shack, you're probably going to be a little more depressed than the average person. That's real. And those are all important. But they scoff at the narratives of the past that were used to explain the illnesses that we've given new reasons for. And that's fine. Those reasons are great and they're valid in many ways, and we should still keep them. But I think that there is an argument to the idea that we've lost some of the existential meaning to these forms of suffering by boiling them down to mundane misfirings in the brain, or the burden of a shitty circumstance or a shitty childhood. And those things may all be real, but there is a reason why these stories resonate and with us now, when we can watch a possession story and not believe in the idea of possession at all, and still feel it, still understand it, still relate somehow to the character's fear of being taken over by something that's not them. You know, that scene where you have Peter kind of just like in terror at having felt something take him over for a moment. That's real. And it doesn't need to be explained solely by a spirit, but it is very much, it does help. I mean, at least I know for in my experience, it's not as satisfying when you get, some kind of like, oh, here's your diagnosis, here's your medicine, peace out. There's something that leaves us wanting there for more significance to what this battle is for anybody that deals with some type of mental health issue, because you do have these battles where a different self tries to take over, whether it's depression and suddenly you see the world through a different lens, and it is one that is debilitating.